And today we're gonna have a slightly different format. There is no deep dive or no hands-on part, whatever you like to call it. Um, it's really entirely reviewing tools and articles I stumbled upon, and a little bit of a wrap up. What happened at KubeCon? I've highlighted a few launches we did at AWS. So, first things first, a couple of tools that I found useful, interesting, worthy of having a look at in the context of cloud native development. First one here is from Pulumi, Cube2 Pulumi, that should be useful in a number of um, scenarios or use cases, essentially allowing you to convert the manifests to Pulumi programs. So nice way to bootstrap things. We've got HTTP stat here, also a relatively nice little tool. Essentially, I'm not sure if who created that, but essentially having a very nice, simple way for stats, right? So you see connection there, how much time was spent in the lookup, TCP connection, SSL handshake, etc., etc. So you get a pretty decent idea of what's going on in a certain HTTP conversation. Next one up here is Docker push RM, or how that is pronounced, README. And that is for keeping the README more or less up to date, right, in sync. Should be useful, and looking forward to ECR support here. Next up, and last one in terms of tooling, is a Loft. I haven't given it a try yet. I do know Lucas, one of the main people behind that, but I haven't deep dived into the into Loft. So potentially that's something I want to do in one of the upcoming cloud native development. Let me switch off echo here. Yeah, you go to sleep. All right. So these were some really interesting, useful tools I saw and thought I'm going to share with you. And now a couple of articles, blog posts, write-ups I've seen and found interesting. This one is around file handling in Unix, Linux. It's relatively deep if you are not familiar with Unix, with POSIX, but yeah, it's an interesting read. Here is a nice YouTube video. I believe it's the Crossplane community meetup that shared that video. Sasha works at SUSE, and yeah, there's this seccomp operator. He walks through that. The good folks from Cilium have launched a rather interesting site called eBPF.io. If you don't know what eBPF is yet, you totally should check it out. Yeah, it's essentially a learning advocacy site, so telling you, what it is, how it works, etc. Acting also as a hub here a little bit, for other projects, related projects. And that should definitely be, in your bookmarks. This one I found interesting, security topic, uncovering secrets in code, speaks for, scanning, speaks for automation. Because if you look at that, this is quite scary, right? And you really want to make sure that at the very beginning of the supply chain, which is you and your laptop or desktop, um, Git committing, Git pushing stuff into your repository, that you don't push stuff there that doesn't belong there, right? Matter of awareness, go and read it. Now, if you have ever thought, and I was in the same situation, kind of like, is Rust something for me? You might have, like myself, a couple of years of Go background, and like, is Rust something for me? I wish I would have had this resource back then. And this is a really great piece. It's relatively long, but you know, you can stop at any point in time and think a little bit about what you learned here by Ginstreimanis, I guess. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry, but great job. Very nice high-level introduction, covering all the things that you need to know to be successful, data ownership, how things work, and compares it with C++ as well. It's not a competition, but gives you some ideas, some reference points. And next up, Pulumi the Second, this time around by Luke, uh, who wrote about CrossGuard, uh, which is a um, Pulumi provided tool that allows you to enforce policies written in OPA's Rego, and yeah, just walks you through that, how you install that and how you use it. And if you haven't tried out OPA, maybe that's a very nice way to get started, right? I mean, Pulumi is really they're really doing a great job there. Another, it's not just a tool; it's actually the background story, if you wish. Jaakko Pallari, I guess, or Jaakko, I don't know, who blogged about that at Polar Squad, what they did, and judging by the feedback I got from Twitter's, LinkedIn's, whatnot, um, seems to be pretty exciting, pretty well received. So well done, Polar Squad Engineering. Last but not least, Michael Britchen of Weaveworks wrote about Flux 2. You might remember a couple of episodes back, we looked at GitOps Toolkit, and this blog post goes a little bit deeper into the relation between Flux version 2 and GitOps Toolkit. And yeah, if you're on the GitOps train, then you should definitely read that. All right. With that, we switch gears. Unfortunately, I need to wrap up relatively soon, so I just point out a few highlights. KubeCon was an interesting development this time around, or interesting experience this time around, to say it quite frankly, because it was the first time that such a big event was, online, was virtual rather than should have been meeting up in Amsterdam. And although it was, different, it worked out pretty nicely. And we had a really great tutorial with Rise and myself on Monday. Great in the sense of great feedback, and thanks a lot for everyone who showed up. And you can still do it in your own time. Going through the exercises there, everything is online, so feel free to do that. Couple of nice and interesting keynotes, and obviously I miss being there with you folks and meeting in person. And hopefully at some point in time next year we will be able to do it again. So, in the context, some of the launches, one of them, the ARM Graviton, has been done earlier, and some of them actually this week. Public record was yesterday, but all of them are in the context of the service team I'm in, starting off with Graviton. So we announced the GA, the general availability of Amazon EKS on AWS Graviton 2, which means you can now use the ARM-based multi-architecture environment being faster, and you get more power for your money, or you spend less for the same power that you get. So in general, in my experience, I talked about that as well. If you have modern cloud native development environments and programming languages like Go or Rust, for example, then it's pretty straightforward. For interpreted languages, you obviously need to check if that is the case, that that the interpreter is available in that environment in ARM or for ARM 64-bit, and for older generations, it is a little bit more effort, but throughout possible. I've seen that throughout very successful migrations to or onto Graviton 2. In that blog post, I'm walking through the entire life cycle, essentially from your desktop, assuming a containerized environment, to a multi-architecture enabled repository, in this case ECR, to a multi-architecture enabled container runtime environment, in this case EKS, and how the whole thing works here, and then I essentially show it in action. Pretty straightforward. And next up, on Wednesday, I believe, we launched ACK, or ACK, as we insider call it, the AWS controllers for Kubernetes. You might remember some 2 years ago, it was called ASO, AWS Service Operator. Our friends from Azure are using this name now. I guess it's the Azure Service Operator. Independently of that, we decided to name it after what it is, because operators confuse or can confuse people in the sense of that operators very often are associated with humans. So we thought, calling it controller or controllers for Kubernetes is more to the point, because this is actually what our deliverables there are, right? It's a bunch of controllers. And there's an awesome unboxing ACK video up on the Container from the Couch folks, my colleagues, and yeah, check it out. It's really awesome. We are now getting there in terms of wrapping up the MVP. So if you look at the project on GitHub, you will find, get there, the release map, right? This is where you see, if you want, us to support a controller, obviously in the fullness of time, should be all of them, but that we as an AWS have many services, so that will take a little bit of time. You can flag your preferences here. We triage that, we review that, commit to certain in a certain order in plan, and then have certain criteria to move it to build and build, meaning we're working on that actively, and then in order to graduate to developer preview, and then to beta, and then to GA, we've defined a set of criteria that we simply want to make sure according to our tenants, things like community-driven production usage, etc. All right, next up is OCI artifact support. That was a cool one. I've been working with my colleagues from the ECR team, and essentially this means that now you can stuff whatever you like, more or less, into ECR. So you can, for example, what I'm showing here in that blog post is Helm charts, OPA bundles. So that's just 2 examples there. It just essentially gives you a single unified space for all of your artifact, be it container images or anything else really. And last but not least, a launch I have not directly been involved with, but I'm super excited about. It was actually yesterday. It's one of the posts. There are others highlighting different things. Bot Rocket, that obviously reminds me very much of um, operating systems I know and been involved with in previous places at Red Hat, etc. Um, and I think the difference here is, it's written in Rust. It's from the ground up, very much optimized for containers and everything you see there, admin container, etc., etc. Everything is optimized for container runtime environments. You can check out the operator. That's a Kubernetes specific way to upgrade that. The operating system. So this is really a super interesting and super exciting launch. Bottle Rocket now being GA. All right, this is pretty much all that I can invest today. But I'm super eager to get back to some hands-on, so let me know what you'd like to see. As I said, probably fall back to Loft if there are no other suggestions until next week. All right, thanks a lot for tuning in, and see you around.